Our third entry at the dotted brev slash longa level is from Craig. And Craig, I've seen uh, two or three of your scores before, and I know that you are going to put a lot of intense orchestration into this. And yeah, after having looked at it, it's very impressive. It's ambitious. Like there are some things in here that push the orchestra maybe a little too far in certain ways at certain times. But you scored something that will give everybody a lot to work on, right? So it's only fair, right? If you're putting that much effort in it and you are really trying to get things as perfect as possible from your own sense of pretty developed craft, then you should expect the orchestra to put some of that work back into it and give you the performance that you deserve. So right in here, we immediately see just a very cool idea. We've had first and second bassoon trading off like this, but in this case, the English horn is taking the part of the first bassoon, and then the first bassoon is taking the second bassoon part, and just sort of trading off on that figure. And that is like the safest way to do this, but it's also great because it brings in that new flavor there of the English horn, and the English horn can blend pretty well with what's going on in the strings. Of course, it's not going to be exactly perfect because it's not exactly the same pattern, but it's still pretty cool. The middle of the pattern is going to be just a little bit not quite doubled all the way on every single tone, but it's still really cool because it has its own energy to it. Yeah, and then the bass clarinet comes in, jumps in and takes the place of the English horn when the music starts to get bigger. That's very cool as well. I really love these very fluttery flute parts and then oboe parts, and I think that they work spectacularly well, and especially with the clarinet doubling from below. That just gives a lot of lift, right? Just have to make sure that it doesn't get too big too fast, right? Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to say piano crescendo to mezzo piano. I mean, unless this is going to, unless you're going to have crescendo, yeah, like here you're saying mezzo piano, you just want to terrace it, while meanwhile your melody instrument is doing a crescendo. Why not just go piano crescendo and then crescendo here and then just leave out the mezzo piano, right? And then just jump down to piano again and then do the same thing with your little crescendo things, and just don't overmark things. Do you know what I mean? Like the players know what to do, right? Then here you have a push, and I think that you could mark everybody alike, right? And you just get a much better contrast. This is the main idea anyway, right? Why hold this back? All you're doing here in the strings is just kind of playing the bottom of this unison melody, right? You're playing an octave below, and then the conjoined uh, flutes and English horn, the tripled, are going to be playing above. So, I mean, it's strange. You're going to have this kind of wind band like texture on top, and then the strings on the bottom. Okay, I mean, I guess it'll work. This is neat though, just like that the fluttering was going on. So the fluttering is really gonna, let's face it, just gonna really take over the music more or less there, and that's really what everybody's gonna hear. And the other things that you add in here, like first oboe doubling the strings, that'll be in there, but it won't really dominate as much as the fluttering, right? So why hold back? Why should the winds be mezzo piano while I mean, you don't need to you don't need to balance it that much. I would say just mark everybody mezzo forte and have them all have the same dynamic, right? Like here you're going da 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 da, right? You want to back off, so you should do the same thing with this, right? Just start off mezzo forte and end up with a little diminuendo at the end, right? Yeah, I think everything would be totally fine. I love the combination of pizzicato and tremolo. That's all really cool. and I like the little touches of glockenspiel and timpani in there, which do a lot. They're not just throwaway notes. They do have a function in there. They do help ground things, right? You know, along with the little double bass touches of double bass pizzicato right in there. So yeah, so I think it's fine. I think it's just a little too fussy in terms of balancing. You know what I mean? The I know you're trying to be really delicate and cautious here, but it's still, you know, it's still a little too cautious. Everything should be mezzo forte here, right? The only difference would be like when you're with your accompaniment style here. Just do the same thing I recommended before. Piano, crescendo somewhere in here. Don't worry about the mezzo piano. Just get rid of that. And then, you know, and then jump back to piano here. Okay. All right, so that's all very cool. Now we're going on to the scrubbing part. Okay, and this is just a complete trade-off. Triangle hitting the last stroke here on the strings, with just a little bit of help from upper winds here, piccolo, first oboe, first clarinet, and then the winds echoing from above, and just a little touch of harp at the end. It's kind of nice. I like this contrasting punctuation. That works very well. And then here we're starting to get into more mixing, right, of the winds backing up the strings a little bit, then the strings, the viola backing up the winds a little bit. You know, that's kind of nice. I mean, the only thing I would comment on is just like if, you know, if there could have been something a little bit more to help us fall off the cliff here, right? Because I don't think it's supposed to flare here so much as just flare into this and then get a forte piano, right? So you don't have to forte piano on this, but if the note here is loud in the other instruments, this can just be soft, right? So mezzo piano crescendo to mezzo forte, piano crescendo to mezzo forte, okay? So just get off the mezzo, avoid mezzo, okay? Seeing too many mezzo, and it just makes it worse that Mussorgsky put mezzo forte in here so much, right? I mean, it makes more sense on piano, but like dynamics in terms of like the orchestral landscape, it's just you know encourages a runaway thing on mezzo dynamics. See here we got a mezzo piano. I mean, it would have been better to go for this pizzicato to be mezzo forte, right? Just hitting this, and then what comes after it can be soft, right? So this tremolo here can just be soft going on, and the same thing here. This could be soft piano, not mezzo piano, right? It's because you want these to blend, right? And same thing, harp here. You know, is anything that hits here going to hang over, right? Same with the glockenspiel. Glockenspiel note will be heard an octave higher, and the same thing with the harp. I'll just bring the harp up an octave, and it'll be much more audible. And then our friends the horns are jumping in here at the end, which is pretty similar to other endeavors. So yeah. So I mean, it's a very cool first page, and I like how it sets up a lot of things that come in the rest of the arrangement. So let's flip the page and take a look at starting from rehearsal number A, excuse me. The main theme comes back, and you know we're seeing a slightly different treatment of it. Flute taking the top pattern, viola's taking the bottom, and so on. And this is really nice. Pizzicato, and then this little arco flurry right here in first and second violins. Now here is where I think you get into trouble. It is so much easier on the conductor and on the score reader and the copyist and everybody else involved if this is just whichever instrument it is, right? Like maybe you have 6 different single line percussion instruments in the piece. Just show them all on the first page, and then you know, then just have whatever name of that instrument is here, and then it just aids in the, you know, in thinking about what that is. And also just use standard note heads. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this is really cool, the triangle note head, but just use a plain old, just boring old standard quarter note head because it's just easy. I mean, it just that's what it is. That's what it means, right? You don't have to do the fancy route. Okay, it's neat. It's kind of fun to do, but just I don't know how professional that is. Just in terms of just like an ordinary old concert score, right? Just I would say just don't do anything fancy. Just express the idea, right? Okay. Um, and like here you say to suspended symbol, and you already have the suspended symbol going right in here. So, do you have this player changing to something else? It kind of is unclear. So maybe this was supposed to go here, and that wasn't supposed to repeat, and then you don't have very much time to get ready. I'm not really sure. So pretty much the suspended symbol player, whoever's playing this, is just going to hold on to it, right, and just stick with it. So this person doesn't need to change, right? So just thinking of the logistics of trading off. Okay, so all that aside, it's neat to hear this chorale behind the strings, kind of taking a more dominant role here with a bit of a harp roll. I mean, I think that is all very very cool. And then this push right into here with once again flurries of winds. I think that is just a strong idea, and it makes everything more phantasmagorical. Do you know what I mean? Like, kind of this is more Byron-esque than say you know than Mussorgskyan, right? It has um, grand emotional gestures, right, where you are impressed by the passion, right, and the colorfulness and the bravado. So yeah, so that's what makes me feel that this is Byron-esque. Anyhow, then yeah, so then we're getting to the right, and very cool to have trills. So I'm not really sure how long this trill lasts, right? So I'm just assuming it's just a hair of a trill on this going to the staccato rather than yeah. So yeah, that's what I would sort of prefer, especially if this were a faster tempo, right? And then once again, fluttering up to here, that's also cool to just bring the energy right back. Yeah, it might get a little stodgy in here. It just in practice with like the all the lower heavy brass and all the lower winds kind of all playing together somewhat lugubriously, right? So if there was some way to kind of lighten this up, whether it's by articulation or backing off on the trombones a little bit or something like that, that might help this bounce a little bit more, right? As opposed to just feeling very heavy-handed, right? I mean, it doesn't feel too heavy-handed, but like live. I'm just looking at this and just imagining, the way that these instruments conspire, right? Low winds and low heavy brass can just really have a kind of a very cloggy sound, right? So just whether it was like maybe tenuto staccato or some other kind of way to just pace it a bit, that would be cool. You're playing pizzicato anyways, the root, right? So that could maybe like staccato in the tuba and contrabassoon, perhaps. But yeah, but just like straight dotted quarter notes are just going to make this really heavy. We have your both of your lowest instruments in wind and brass kind of holding down that root. Okay, now here I felt like just in terms of the mock-up, this was just way too long. This fermata, it just really held for a long time. And kind of for me, it sort of sucked away some of the drama, right? It's just a little too. It's like it overstayed its welcome. Let's just put it that way, right? So maybe adjust that, or just think about that element, right? And but other than that, this was nicely split up, right? I don't think. Well, yeah, so you're going all the way up to E. So yeah, all right, that's fine for treble clef, taking the whole beam group. All right, that's all good. Yeah. So I mean, I wish that there was a way that you could change some of these functions, really. I mean, like give this to the second violins rather than the violas. The violas are perfectly capable of this and this, but it's just, I just feel like getting into the territory of the violins, it's almost better to have this on a violin, right? Anyway, it was just my thought there. Yeah. But other than that, basically just a lot of doubling, wins, and it's just going to make things really shiny and yeah, and forceful, which is what you want there. And then this little rip right here in the clarinet. So almost just maybe the viola does not even need to play that last little beam group. Do you know what I mean? Maybe the violas could be playing. Maybe the violas and cellos could just be playing lower, like supporting what's going on with the clarinets from below a bit, right? Rather than just right on pitch. Yeah, I know that there's harmonization in the cellos, but I'm not feeling the greatest about that last swoop up there, especially considering that the violas have got to get ready to do this, right? This is neat though. I mean, I do like the trading off and the sort of mysterioso quality here, and the tremolos and the seconds. Yeah, I mean, it's cool to have the viola tone in there, but once again, I sort of feel like the violas could be playing this and the seconds could be playing that, right? Just in terms of like technical fluidity and register and everything else. So, but it's still pretty cool. And of course, like the seconds are a better partner to the firsts in this kind of back and forth dovetailing sort of swooping. It'll be much more seamless. I love the tremolo though, and I just love the little bits and pieces here from the winds on this section, right? So that just picks up here. Same basic idea. Okay, and then we're building towards this. And I think you snuck in an extra bar, right? You're correcting Mussorgsky. Or no, that's here, isn't that? The five bars until jumping back in there. All right, so sorry. My mistake. Okay. So, yeah, horns working together with the second violins. Yeah, and once again, I just feel like this is, yeah, I mean, how far up can you push? This would be better for firsts, right in here. Do you know what I mean? And this would be better for seconds. Maybe these roles could be switched around a little bit, but really you just get a much better result here, especially pushing the firsts up to here and then just coming back down here to this D and continuing on. I feel just as a much stronger approach. Yeah, and oboe right in here is almost like not needed at all, but it's good that you've got some doubling from the cello, which, wow, once again just goes so high, just wondering if there's maybe some divisi you could have done with viola or some other kind of thing. Not that the cellos can't go high, it's just, yeah, I mean, things are not going to their strongest register in order to achieve things that you're throwing at them that really require a lot of focus to play. So, I mean, that I would not recommend that approach just in normal scoring, right? Then we got the timpani. I really love the way you open it up here to forte. That's great. And the rest of this is very cool. Going into our little mini apotheosis here at the end. Yeah, and nicely telescoped. Not too much fuss. Again, once again, here at least you got an excuse. The piccolo dropping out won't be noticed because of all the doubling that's happening in the strings, the flute just going to the next G, and everything else. So that is excusable. But if it were an octave higher, then I would taunt you mercilessly. Okay. Here I think. Oh, just wonder if there's some way that you can, some other instrument that could. Well, it doesn't really matter. Maybe you could take out more. You could take out more weight here at the end, so that just the single English horn balances with whatever single instrument is above. Like, do the flutes even need to be there, for instance? Maybe, right? Or maybe just a single flute on this G right here, going forwards. And once again, I felt that the fermata was just a little bit too long there. But yeah, here we had some very mighty, enormous, humongous lower winds and brass scoring. It just, just really heavy and almost organ-like. Do you know what I mean? Just everybody taking the lowest possible note that they could play, then you get a very organ-like sound. And it doesn't help like being played on a sound set where the way that different overtones line up are almost certain to give you like the same overtones that an organ gets, which is actually, the organ's actually built that way intentionally to make those overtones ring, because that's what the singers can hear those overtones, and it helps guide them and keep them more in tune if they're less professional, right? But we don't want that so much in one of these scores. Yeah, this high A is just going to ring out very, very strongly, and just that much focus, that much weight of the trumpets right up there. So yeah, it's good that you bring things down literally, quite a bit beforehand with the other brass instruments. Okay, so anyways, so that's really nicely done up to letter B. And from here, we have some very intense scoring indeed. Now, I'll just say a little over fussy on some of the dynamic marking, if you know what I mean. Like mezzo piano, diminuendo, and then piano. I mean, it all works. Just, maybe more standard approaches would just bring this all into line a little bit better, because there's nothing here that really needs that much tweaking, like as I saw put into here. But it's okay. Couple of things, like this is not going to be heard at mezzo piano. If everybody else is soft and this is mezzo forte, then you're going to hear a little bit of harp, just a little bit. But like you can have the softest texture in the world, right? But if there are so many instruments on it, right? If everybody is playing softly and they're all projecting and they're all adding tone color, you can still lose the harp. And I have a slight problem here with this kind of rhythmic notation in 9/8. I think that this should be 2/8 tied together. All right, just don't confuse your conductor. Right, they need to think 1, 2, 3 tied to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so don't do this if you can at all avoid it. Okay. There were two really awesome things between B and C, and we'll talk about those first with this one, and then I'll mention the one on the other page. The one I like here is this just beautiful noir touch, right? Bringing in the bassoon family and the lower heavy brass right on top of this accented diminuendo roll, right? From the timpani. That is just, and I just expect to hear an update, right? And then just of course adding like the lower strings, also tremoloing and dropping away. I mean, this is driving around music in a patrol car, right? Or just like a guy like a caught as a cog in the wheel of a great machine he cannot control, right? It's just that kind of music. So that's really lovely. So yeah. So I no problems with that really, and I do like the addition of the horn here and the strings working with alongside the flutes and oboes. But I do have one problem here, and that is that it's just all too smooth. Right, I'm kind of losing the sense of, I'm just it's I just feel that, I mean, I don't feel any kind of emphasis at the beginning of each of these pairs of notes, right? Which you took away, by the way. So there isn't any. But yeah, I just kind of miss that. That's sort of in the original piano score. And of course, this is dealt with pretty well. That A2 clarinets, doubling second violins, but just kind of wondering whether there could have been more, like the tremolo parts could have tremoloed up and followed, right? Along with clarinets maybe in harmony. So just like there was just a little bit more that you could have done in there, but it's all really really cool. And then just adding third and fourth horn as you go. I think this is kind of a long time. Um, I mean, it's all doable. Like maybe this could be third horn, and then first horn could take over here, and then the third and fourth continue on. That might be a better way to deal with this, just so that it's just not, the first horn player can just really focus on that range. So that would be ideal. Like keep everything within that higher octave. Just so that just better focus. Of course, like who knows, your third player could be horrible. So uh, and of course, like bass clarinet, doubling the cellos and keeping them secure. Okay, so that compensated for the fact that you use the same exact treatment on every single bar, so it doesn't really build into this except for the fact that you come back strong here, mezzo forte, and then you push into this, right? So I will give you a break on that, and also just because this just sounded so awesome, and you know, just really noir, as I was saying before. Okay, all right, so Subitu Più Mosso, and yeah, so just suddenly everything is quite a bit faster, and that's cool. Um, and yeah, bum 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 bum. That's really neat. The clarinets and bassoons, along with some cello in there, and violas punching at some chords, and of course the lower brass and sorry, timpani, and yeah, just kind of a nice pedal tone there in the lowest of each brass and wind instrument and string instrument. Okay, so so I feel that this is sort of a prelude to an even better treatment of this, right? So let's turn the page. We got our build here, trumpets, and just a little bit of patterning in the strings. That's fine. Could be a little bit bigger, patterning just so that it doesn't disappear under the trumpets. Okay, but here, this is my favorite part here. Okay, yeah, the timpani note is not going to last that long, right? You can just you might as well just hit just make this a dotted quarter note value, and then just say forte sostenuto, right? And then just let them, LV or something. But this is probably not going to last that long. But this is so cool. Double basses and octaves, just a big, massive pad in the lower winds, and and then these heroic off four horns, right? So that's my favorite part, right there. It just becomes suddenly Wagnerian, right? That yeah. So I just really love that, right? And then of course building up again. I feel these builds, like this is a better build than this one was. I just feel that these builds could have more power, more pushing power. Do you know what I mean? Like you hold off on the brass until like right in here and everything else, right? So it's I feel that there could have been more brass and lower winds and everybody pushing towards this goal a little bit sooner, because it's kind of pulls the rug out from under this climax. But I mean, on the other hand, I see what you're doing here with like trying not to play that card too soon, but then they're almost completely isolated on their own, except for like these jumping around strings, which are kind of weak, right? Because they suddenly have no doubling from the winds. So I feel not entirely perfectly conceived in there, and there is some more that you could be doing in there. But the percussion is cool. And yeah, so I just really prefer like, so I don't have to remember what happened before. Right? Like what is this instrument again? Right? It's better just to have all of these. In the future, I would say, with these evaluations, anyways, just have all of the percussion instruments named, and don't do a percussion one, percussion two, and then we have to remember and maybe forget to put in what it is on each page and so on. It's just like it's less to think about. If you have a dedicated line for each instrument and then just cut them all down on the following pages, hide the staves. Okay, but yeah, other than that, I like that. Just like nice little trading off the instruments going downhill. Okay, all right. So I'm seeing this in a few other scores. So if we just assume that this is all going to be strings and the strings are going to absorb the sound of the winds, then there doesn't really need to be as much trading off, right? It just because the whole point of it is that like it's basically strengthening the winds as it goes down, right? Or the strings, sorry, it's doubling the strings as it goes down. So any kind of uniqueness sort of gets a little bit lost, right? So the trading off, say like the trading off is a cool thing because it trades between timbres, right? But if that timbral thing is missing, then because of the doubling, then is it needed, right? So just a question to ask. And then we're back to English horn trading off with bassoon, and a little bit of patterning from the strings, and then simplification. Everything setting up for C. At this point, the texture it somewhat recalls what happened at the beginning, but in other ways is a little bit more integrated, I feel. And pretty strong. Once again, the flurries take over, and I've got no problem with that. I think that they're much more interesting than the actual theme. Okay, piccolo is going to be a little weak playing octaves with the violins. It's not really in its strongest register, and the mezzo forte violins will easily overwhelm the sound of the piccolo right in here. So maybe if there was another instrument that could play this, that would be better. Or there could be doubling with the violins or some other kind of thing. Some maybe rethinking this a little bit. But I really love that. That's great. And then these little reactions, these little 3-note reactions, just feel a little weak to me. Like here we've got, second oboe, first clarinet, all by themselves, nothing else. That's it. And then over here we got the horn and first trumpet, first horn, first trumpet. I just feel it's not supported enough. Do you know what I mean? It's just kind of everything is so integrated and beautiful and homogeneous in a lot of ways, and just really pulling together, and then it's just suddenly there's this little thing at the end, right? It's maybe just too soft, right? If this was better, if it were like nice and big and strong, right? Or like instead of mezzo forte, just a strong forte with accents and everything, right? Just a or crescendo or something, but just something that, or like maybe accent to diminuendo, maybe, but just something just a lot fuller, right? I just feel that it robs, like this being, not only is it sort of unsupported, but it also kind of robs the beautiful effect of all of the wonderfully integrated orchestration before it. And that's a really subjective reaction, but I just felt that something was missing there. So after that, we start to recall some of the material before, kind of setting up this Polovtsian dances kind of 9/8 waltz. Okay, and now here we're getting a little less cautious in terms of our string scoring. It's playable, but it's going to be a lot of work, right? So like we're getting into more and more work here for the string players in terms of just learning these really heavy duty, very very active lines. And and once again, no emphasis on each pair of notes past the downbeat, right? Dud and dud and dud and dud, and that's not there at all. It's da da. It's yeah, it's just doesn't have the same impact without the phrasing being realigned. Okay, but all the same, I mean it's very piquant the way that it's scored. First flute and then clarinet and piccolo above this first. Yeah, I mean it'll have a very bright sound. Okay, and then just some impact right in the middle of the bar right there, and then here we get into our Borodin waltz. Okay, and once again I don't know what this is. I don't know what instrument that is. Right, so yeah, just better to have a single line with a dedicated name, because there really weren't that many different percussion. You had what, triangle, cymbals, bass drum. They could all have their own separate lines. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, and then this is going to be a little work to learn for the bassoons, but it's still all right. I really do. Yeah, this is going to be a little rough right in here. These this part right in here interacting with the bass clarinet's going to bring it a little bit of dignity, but it's still it's not the most graceful instrument in the world. It would have been nice if there was some maybe like some support on this part from, say, the double basses interacting with the cellos, but you've already got them tied up, right? So yeah. Then I like this once again, that kind of noir hitting right in the middle with the timpani roll. That's fun too. And then there's no time to dwell on the criminal side of life, because we're going right back into this. And yeah, this is such a these grace notes, these coordinated grace notes in the winds is such a Rimsky-Korsakov orchestrating Night on Bald Mountain kind of approach, and it kind of like falls apart here, right? They're just, I mean, you have these, but they're not audible in the mock-up, and they're really not going to have that much effect with this much weight on those winds, unless you bring in really similar gestures in some of these other parts, like maybe the first oboes could be doing some of this, right? Or some of the other parts. So, anyways, yeah, keeping in mind that these grace notes are also going to be work for the players too, like the string players, because they're going to have to play them, play those two notes in front of every single one of these other notes that they are tackling, and gradually descending. So, anyways, but I mean, other than that, it's pretty punchy, pretty splashy, just exactly what's needed right there. Not really out of balance or anything. So, yeah. And then we've got our build, and I like the way that you separated the functions. Da da da. Then the brass directed ba da ba da ba da. That's really really cool right in there. Yeah, and right here, unless everybody really truly shuts the hell up, this is completely lost, right? Pretty sudden time to get everybody down to mezzo piano, and it really would have to be like just everybody getting down to mezzo piano there, and then keep this marked forte, and then you'll hear the harp, right? But still, the carryover from all that massive sound and the way that the audience's ears have been forced open to listen to big things may also just kill this little harp solo right in here. It's just the the acoustic phenomenon, but that's just the danger. All right, and then this was really really neat in here, like first clarinet and violas taking the melody there. That was just really lovely. Along to some horn right in there, first and third. That was very cool. And yeah, just backing everything way way off. And yeah, I mean, it's okay for things to mostly be piano or pianissimo, right? And just have one single foreground element that is piano, dolce. You know, your melodic element. Probably the best way to balance this is to have everybody marked pianissimo, then the clarinets and violas can be marked piano dolce, and then keep pianissimo here, pianissimo dolce on the horn, right? And then you'll have a beautiful balance in there. Which takes us to the last page. I was not too thrilled with the muted trumpet right in here. I mean, I feel everything is soft and delicate, and a muted trumpet isn't necessarily soft and delicate. It's distant, right? It kind of has a distant sound, but it still is kind of raspy, right? To me, it sort of works against the beautiful texture that you've got going here. And the same thing could be true here, like if this is still muted, right? Yeah, maybe there's another choice of instruments that could be possibly worked here, or maybe you could take off the mutes and just have them play really softly, or use a different kind of mute. And this is all fun, yeah. And this is just perfection, right? But it's interesting that you're saying andante at 90, right? Just like one of the faster tempos that you are dealing with, right? Which would seem to me to be slower, right? Than all of these other different indications, tempo indications that you gave before. But anyway, and then just very, very regular stairs going all the way up here, and just a tiny touch of pizzicato. I thought that was also very, very cool, very original, right? And just ending with these plucks, which don't have to all be on the same pitch, right? So really, really neat. I just love this score, and it's just amazing to see it again, to see where you've been, you know, like where you're taking a lot of this, and you know, taking my advice in previous scores and everything else, and you know, I hope that it is a constructive experience, and that you can, you know, that you're gonna get, you know, work from this, and that it is like something that you would want to do again, because we sure would like to see you back for the next challenge, which is going to be a score that's very important to me. And probably everybody will say, oh, well, does that mean that it's your score? No. But I think you really will get a kick out of the music for the next evaluation, which is going to be completely different from anything we've done. It's not going to be like it's not going to be like the Mussorgsky of this year. It's not going to be like the Bartok of last year at all. It's not really going to be like the Ravel of the year before. Not you know, just it's going to have a completely different vibe. And I hope it'll bring out the best in all of our orchestrators, as it seems that, you know, that selections like this one have done for you. All right, so thank you so much for your support. I just really, you know, it just amazes me continuously that people can help this channel stay alive and offer things like this, and that I can kind of validate all this in, you know, every year with these challenges, because they really help me, as you know, as much as they might be helping you. I just feel that it's great to look at each score. And with that, it's time to go on to our next score.